Everyone thought America's absence would paralyze the G20. Everyone was wrong. On November 22, 2025, 19 countries came together without Trump. For 76 years, global summits required America's approval. Trump thought the boycott would ruin the meeting. Sitting at Mar-a-Lago, he discovered that the world had reached agreement on climate, debt relief, and development. Ladies and gentlemen, this weekend in Johannesburg, an unprecedented event in modern diplomatic history took place. The G20 summit, representing 3/4 of the world's population and 2/3 of global GDP, was successfully held despite the United States' boycott. The United States not only quietly skipped the summit, but actively boycotted it, demanded that other countries refuse to issue a joint statement, and threatened consequences for non-compliance. And the world said no. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa issued the G20 Leaders Declaration anyway. 19 countries signed the declaration. It addresses climate change, debt relief for developing countries, artificial intelligence governance, and food security. Everything the Trump administration opposed. Prime Minister Mark Carney stood before journalists in Johannesburg and delivered a statement that will echo through history. The world can move on without the United States. Not with regret. Not apologetically. With confidence. For those who remember when American participation guaranteed success and American opposition doomed initiatives, this moment represents a fundamental shift in global power dynamics. By the end of this video, we'll understand 3 things: why Trump boycotted the summit, how the world successfully defied him, and what this means for American influence globally. If you value this analysis, hit that like button. Now let's examine Trump's disastrous miscalculation. To understand Trump's boycott, we need to understand his bizarre obsession with South Africa. In March 2025, shortly after returning to office, Trump began tweeting about alleged genocide against white farmers in South Africa. He claimed the South African government was seizing land from white Afrikaners and murdering them systematically. He demanded international intervention. Every claim was false. They were comprehensively and demonstrably false. Numerous international human rights organizations, including conservative organizations with no reason to protect South Africa, conducted research and found no evidence of systematic violence against white farmers. South Africa's murder rate affects all racial groups, and black South Africans actually face higher levels of violence per capita. Land reform policies exist, but they are progressing through legal and constitutional processes, not through confiscation. But Trump doesn't care about the facts. He cares about rhetoric that appeals to his base. White farmers allegedly under siege in Africa fit his worldview perfectly. White victims, black oppressors, Western civilization under threat. That it's fiction doesn't matter. It mobilizes his supporters. When South Africa, the first African country to host the summit, was elected to chair the G20, Trump immediately opposed it. He described South Africa as a country unworthy of leadership. He pressured other countries to support moving the meeting elsewhere. When that failed, he announced that the US would boycott it. His administration went further. They demanded that only a chairman's summary be released, not a formal declaration. Why? Because declarations represent consensus. They require all participating nations to agree. Trump wanted to ensure that even in his absence, American opposition would paralyze the summit. South African officials refused. President Ramaphosa made clear the summit would proceed normally with or without America. If Trump wanted to boycott, fine. An empty chair would represent the United States. But the G20 would continue its work. For those who remember the Cold War, when American participation was essential for Western Bloc unity, this defiance would have been unthinkable. Not because South Africa lacks courage, but because the consequences would have been severe: economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, military threats. But the world changed. America is no longer the only superpower that matters. China's economy rivals America's. The European Union represents a market of 450 million affluent consumers. Emerging economies like India, Indonesia, and Brazil wield significant influence. South Africa calculated correctly that Trump's threats were empty.